Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it's going to remain very unsettled and fairly cool. We are looking at the risk though as we head into this weekend of it perhaps turning particularly stormy. Not stormy in terms of thunderstorms, but stormy in terms of lots of heavy rain and very strong gusty winds. Now, we're not looking at anything that beyond the scale of a traditional winter storm, where we see wind gusts up to 100 miles per hour, but we could see wind gusts maybe 50, 60 miles per hour, and of course with trees in full leaf this time of year, it could still cause some disruption, and there is of course the risk of it being named as well. So we are just looking at this system as we head into the weekend, and we'll be able to see it on the UKV and then have a look at some of the longer range models as well to see its evolution into next week as well from the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the Ensembles. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So, if we do start on the live radar, you can see another day of plenty of heavy thundery showers around. We did see some very heavy rain for northern regions through yesterday, for southern and central regions over last night to the early hours of the morning. And now behind all of those big weather systems, we've now got lots of heavy showers. Now you can see across the southeast we've got some more persistent rain, but it's lighter with some moderate patches within it. But further north and westward you can see these streaks of very heavy rain developing, and even a few darker red patches indicating torrential rain and of course the risk of thunderstorms within this. Definitely this system approaching Mansfield, this line through Derby towards Nottingham, just off the coast here towards Grimsby, through parts of Yorkshire and into parts of Wales towards Bristol as well. Lines of heavy showers and storms of course forming along the vector of the wind direction which is coming in from the west. We're seeing these storms sort of line up and maintain their strength. We're seeing more extensive rain across Scotland with some very heavy patches within this as well. Again, all this rain accumulating could perhaps cause some flooding issues where we see some heavier bursts. Parts of Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, still a few heavy thundery showers around, but nowhere near as widespread as it has been over the past few days. So yeah, just another very unsettled day. You will see some drier patches, but of course most regions will see some heavy rain at times, and even some torrential rain, especially for parts of Yorkshire and the Midlands. If you look at the temperatures, as of around 3:30, it's not a particularly warm day. Best temperature across the far east, towards Norwich and Essex, East Anglia sort of region. Seeing temperatures at best into the low 20s, generally further westwards and northwards, it is quite a bit cooler. You can see the hot air's not far away, 50 to 100 miles across the channel. We're seeing temperatures into the high 20s, if not 30s, but because of the low pressure, with the boundary of that cold air, warm air divide just towards the near continent, we're just about in the cooler, fresher air mass. And you can see temperatures across parts of Germany here, Spain, in towards the Alp region, to northern Italy, reaching the high 30s. Very hot conditions here. All that hot air getting trapped because the jet stream coming along northern Europe and keeping all this hot air from escaping. This would traditionally spread northwards, not always giving sort of mid-30s towards the UK, but warming us up a bit. But instead it's sort of just getting trapped and just heating up and culminating in a very hot spell for many central and southern regions of Europe. Now, if you look at the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, you can see all those showers heading in today. Heavy thundery showers in places continuing to rumble through the rest of this afternoon before losing intensity this evening. A longer spell of more moderate to heavy rain could develop for Northern Ireland and Northern Scotland over tonight. And as we head in tomorrow, another day of sunshine and showers. Doesn't look quite as extensive and as intense, but there's still some reds here and there are still plenty of scattered showers. So probably a repeat of today, just not quite as widespread or intense. Into Thursday, we see more showers and once again less intensity and less widespread nature. So if you are in central and southern regions, Thursday doesn't look too bad. The day could see a few passing showers, but not too bad. And then into Friday, things start to deteriorate as the weather fronts approaching start approaching that are associated with the potential for quite a stormy system through the weekend. Initially, very heavy rain moving on its weather fronts, spreading northwards, and by the 15th, we're in the sort of centre of the low pressure with some very intense bands of precipitation here. Big, heavy thunderstorms likely in the centre of this system, as it has got some very warm, humid air wrapped up within it. Through Saturday and Sunday could be some very unsettled and wild conditions in places with this bouts of extremely heavy rain and very strong gusty winds. When I look at the mean sea level pressure here, you can see into the 15th, this centre of that low is parked towards Northern Ireland, up towards Scotland, with very strong gusty winds on its southern and eastern extent. You see the upper air temperatures, especially when the weather front approaches overnight into the 15th. Look at that, we've got a big warm sector there. Again, not insanely hot air mass, but very warm, humid air mass nonetheless. And that's just fueling all of that rain within initially the weather front, and then secondly, those heavy thundery showers. And if you look at the wind gusts, through Friday, they're not too bad, starting to get towards 30, 40 miles per hour. But into Saturday, starting to gust around the edges of the low, 40, 50, and perhaps 60 in a few regions as well. Again, doesn't sound insanely bad. Plenty of times on the UKV, we see 80 miles per hour in spots through the winter, and even 90 or 100 miles per hour in isolation. But we aren't. But this system is nowhere near the intensity of a winter system. But as I said, with trees in full leaf and just generally this time of year, people are expecting very windy conditions. It's traditionally not that windy this time of year. It could come as quite a shock and could still cause some issues. And of course, not only the gusts, the sustained winds are relatively strong as well. Through the 15th, many regions have got sustained winds up towards the teens inland, if perhaps 20 miles per hour, and towards coastal areas 25 to 30 miles per hour sustained mean winds, which are pretty strong at the best of times. Remember, a tropical depression out in the Atlantic or a tropical storm in the Atlantic it starts coming in the 40s, and a hurricane is at 70 miles per hour. So again, we're nowhere near a hurricane strength, but we're not that far off and of very strong winds that would be get a named status for an Atlantic hurricane system. It would get named by the NHC. So it is a very strong system from the latest UKV, and the other runs as well are showing it. So we need to keep a very close eye on this, as it could cause some headaches into the weekend. If you look at the max temperatures today, touching 22 or 23 in the Far East, but most regions high teens, maybe touching low 20s. Into tomorrow, very similar, maybe 20 to 23 degrees more extensively with less showers, but still high teens in other regions. In Saturday, again, 20 to 23 at best, elsewhere cooler. And then to Friday, into the south and the west, with that heavy rain moving in, low teens looks likely. Further northwards, eastwards could touch 20 degrees again. And then into Saturday, it's all over the place with the temperatures. It could be 14 or 15 degrees with regions that see, with that heavy thundery rain. Areas further eastwards that escape that initially could just about touch 20 degrees. So not a particularly great day on Saturday. Nonetheless, it's going to be pretty wild, and we'll have to keep an eye on how intense it does get. If you look at the GFS, we'll be able to see this low pressure system into the weekend. Low pressure is dominating at the moment, but it's this low here developing on Friday and moving in. It's quite an intense system by Saturday before filling out a bit as it moves out into the North Sea as we head into Sunday and Monday. Beyond that, we stay into a westerly flow, but low pressure stays away for maybe a couple of days before it moves back in, giving us unsettled conditions and generally a westerly flow. A few extensions of the Azores high here, so could see briefly drier and warmer conditions, but generally the ensembles and most operational runs recently have been still average to below average. Even here when the Azores high extends in, we're still just about touching average. If we do look at the wind speeds as well, you'll be able to see it's nothing ridiculous towards the UK, but definitely the strongest through all of Europe and most of the North Atlantic in general, this low pressure system moving in, and generally most of the Northern Hemisphere, to be honest. If we look at North America, not seeing anything that strong. So yeah, very strong system, one of the strongest systems on our latitude in the entire planet at this point. And we'll have to keep an eye on what happens with this. Could be quite wild, as I said, into the weekend. If you look at the GM, again, low pressure system spinning up this weekend. I think it's quite an intense system. It takes a little bit longer to get going and actually stays pretty intense into Sunday, so it's taking longer to clear, but eventually it does, and we go into a westerly flow. Bit more, again, of an extension of the Azores high, but not really allowing a warm air mass to move in, so we're still trapped under reasonably cool air. If we look at the 10 metre wind speeds as well, you can see, once again, very strong towards parts of the UK, and again, very similar to the GFS, producing some of the strongest winds on our latitude. You compare it to all other regions, and once again, you can see the 10 metre winds are getting up towards sort of 25 to 30 knots. Very strong, and again, could cause some issues. And finally, if we look at the ECMWF, once again, low pressure spinning up this weekend in quite a violent system and taking a bit of time to clear before another low moves in for Tuesday. Again, could maintain those stormy conditions. And you see the upper air temperatures are nothing exceptional, could just about touch average or slightly above average towards day 10, but pretty cold still for the majority of regions. And even a pocket of -5 isotherm could start to flirt with the northern Isles of Scotland. That is very cold for this time of year, and as we saw in the temperature deviation, that's 10 degrees below average. And very similar to the other runs, you'll be able to see that it is pretty wild on the 10 metre wind speeds. Look at that, very strong orange colours appearing here, yellow-orange colours here. Again, strongest on the northern hemisphere in general. Just showing you that this system is pretty intense for the time of year. And if we finish by looking at the ensembles, generally see average to below average. The only notable sign here is a bit of a spike in precipitation on the 15th and a spike in upper air temperatures, and that's the warm sector associated with the big low pressure system. As we saw in the UKV, most of the rain will be falling in the north and west, so London not quite seeing as much, but nevertheless, pretty much all regions will see some rain associated with it. You can see the 10 metre wind speeds here are very strong as well, especially the next week in general with low pressure around, but definitely spiking around that 15th, 16th speed, 16th point around the 10 metres per second, so very strong. And the 2 metre temperatures are nothing exceptional either, low 20s at best. And if we compare to the ECMWF, very similar for the upper air temperatures, a spike this weekend with the warm sector, and then generally below average for the foreseeable future and remaining very unsettled. And if we do look at the 10 metre wind speeds as well, a notable spike around this weekend as well for those very strong gusty winds. And again, we can compare it to Glasgow, which would be more towards the centre of that system. Once again, a cluster of very strong winds here, and you can actually have a look best at the mean sea level pressure dropping down to perhaps as low as 985 millibars, a very low pressure system for this time of year. So again, we'll have to keep a very close eye on this, but it could be named. Most likely we'll see at least some yellow warnings with it, whether it's for wind or rain. Would expect that looking at the latest model data. Could be named and could even see an amber warning issued if things do get a little bit worse. So we will have to see, and I'll keep you updated on that over the next few days. But we've still got a good 3 or 4 days leading up to it, and there does look like plenty of decent conditions around, perhaps later this working week. So do go and enjoy that, and hopefully this weekend doesn't get too intense, and the models do downgrade a bit, as this could be pretty disruptive if this came off. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you have enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.